Hey guys, it is me, Tanya, founder of the T&G Designs Group Limited. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. So, in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to design a personal brand website. Now, you're probably thinking, Tan, I already know how to design a website. You shared a whole bunch of videos on websites. I have, and that may be true. However, watch this video because you're going to be learning about just a couple of extra really cool things that will literally take your personal branded website up to that next level. And yes, I have shared a few other website videos on how to build websites and equally how to build e-commerce websites. The difference here is when it's specifically talking about personal branded websites, it actually doesn't have to go too far in depth in comparison to the other websites that I've just been talking about. Now, when you understand the personal branded website and equally how it can actually benefit you, boost your awareness, boost the awareness of your brand more specifically and the cause that you're actually, fighting for or wanting to raise awareness on, understanding these clear, cut and concise ways to make sure that you are leveling up with your personal branded website will literally take you that next step further to not only ensure that you are reaching the correct audience, not just any old audience, but equally also making sure that that said audience responds and engages to the cause or the thing that it is that you're actually standing for, because it's super key and always important to be able to make sure that you're sending out a message that people hear, people understand, and people, even more importantly, resonate with. So that being said, folks, before you get stuck into this video, please make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe to this channel, because as always, I'm super aware of my views. Thank you so much for viewing and watching and so forth. But I need you to do this one step next thing and actually make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Please also go ahead and share it and make sure you stick around to the very end, because as always, I've got something really cool to be able to share with you, all about key principles to make sure that you don't only just hear what I'm talking about in this video, but you actually go on and take action and do something with this information that I'm going to be sharing. Without further ado, folks, let's get stuck into it. So as I said, we're going to be talking about how to create a personal branded website. Now, as you know, in general, things like your colors, your fonts, the general messaging that you have should always remain consistent throughout anything that you do, and especially when it comes to your website. So please make sure that any textures that you use, any colors that you use, any fonts that you use are consistent throughout the whole of your setup when it comes to your website. Regardless if you're using a website builder, regardless if you're, reaching out to a general supplier like myself or anybody else who actually does web development as well, make sure that you are using your colors, your branded colors, and make sure that they're also consistent to your hex code. Make sure that they're also consistent to the type of fonts that you're using. All that kind of stuff always should be considered. Now, that aside, I really want you to make sure that you're doing these things as well, especially when it comes to your personal branded website. You want to make sure when you create a website, especially, when I ever talk about the above fold mark, that literally means that the minute somebody clicks on your URL address or your domain name, they actually get taken to the first section of your website that is known as your above fold section, but equally that is also known as your landing page. Okay. Now this landing page, the above fold section, this landing area, this home page, however you want to phrase it, in that, just as it is for the e-commerce website, just as it is for your general branded website, this section needs to be super clear, super concise, and equally straight to the point as to who it is this person is actually viewing, and equally what it is that they actually need to find out about you. So that being said, in that particular section, not only do they need to see your photo, not only do they need to understand your very brief overview of your bio, they equally need to understand, okay, what is this person about? So for example, you can have a picture of yourself to one side, and then on the other side, you literally have your general overview of your bio and including your accolades as well. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. When it comes to accolades, I'm talking about your credibility features. So your logo features, anything that you've been a part of, anything that you've been included in, anything that you've had a mention in, always include those logos, because what that does, it actually showcases the idea of who you are and actually to the extent of what you can actually do. Now, it's all well and good listing these things, but imagine having external logos of featuring bodies that have actually included you within any articles, within any radio or TV interviews, anything like that. Do you have any logos that you can actually use, or even newspaper articles as well? Those could also be included. Do you have any logos that can actually be used as your accreditation logos? So go ahead and just showcase those, again, above fold. Because again, what that does, it provides that extra bit of credibility or that extra bit of reassurance to any viewer that's coming across your page that you actually mean business and you actually want to be taken seriously. So, okay, now let's actually move on and focus on the actual overview of the bio that I was talking about that sits next to your image, right? The image of you. This overview of your bio is literally a super short summarized version. Think of it as being as short as, or nearly as short as, something like your LinkedIn profile, the summary version, right? You know how short that is. And by the way, you can actually use that to partner up with what I'm about to share with you right now. So that being said, you can actually start with something like, I'm just going to use myself as an example. You can start with something like, hi, I'm Tanya. This is me. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur, multiple best-selling co-author, published illustrator, speaker, diversity inclusion champion, and branding specialist. And leave it just like that. Then you can go on with this super short summarized version. Again, this is how you can actually partner your LinkedIn summary with this particular section. Just simply like 1 or 2 sentences, that is it. Keep it super short. And on that note, I'm going to again use myself as an example. So it could be something along the lines of, I partner with business owners in the coaching space, helping them to stand out and build distinctive brand identities that strengthen their reputations to attract more clients for sustainable growth. So there we go. What can actually be for you? Now, feel free to pause this and just re-listen to it again, but at the same time, think about what can it be for you? So, on that note, this is where we then move on and go on to ways to elaborate on what we've just shared there. Now, remember, the above fold section, just like with the other websites as well, the way how to create those, the above fold section, when it comes to your personal branded website, is the summarized, nitty-gritty, get straight to the point version of what this website is about, or equally what you are about. I just shared it there in very short, sharp, simple ways. So think about what that could be for yourself. Now, as I said, we're going to move on and start the About section. Now, the About section is where we elaborate. So we go into a little bit more in-depth, sort of a description about you. Now, I'm talking about you, but really what I'm talking about more specifically is homing in on your story. Now, your story should consist of a section that talks about where you were in the past. Equally, where you are right now, but more so that middle section, concentrating on that, the idea of what it is that actually triggered you to move in the first place in order to be able to get to where you are right now. So think about what that is for yourself. Now, with my bio, it includes everything from understanding to the idea of I was made redundant, then all the way through to going through adversities in my life and more so within my working life, and what I did to be able to get to the point that I'm at right now. Essentially, I moved out of my own way and equally started listening to all the answers that were actually coming at me. But more specifically, I was listening to the audiences that I was actually speaking to and their feedback. And it was their feedback that helped me to realize certain key things, more specifically to the idea of, do you know what? We're all more than what we see. But we always tap on this surface level thing. We never get to the nitty gritty as to what it is that we really do in order to be able to help people. Because when you tackle that section right there, that's when you understand how you can now move forwards and start attracting the clients that you actually want to work with, but more so even help them. And especially when it comes to your personal brand, you can use the same method to be able to understand what is your actual cause? What is the purpose for you doing this personal brand in the first place? Is it to make sure that you boost the awareness of your business brand or whatever the bigger picture is for yourself? Is it to make sure that you're boosting the awareness of a charity? Is it to make sure that you're boosting the awareness of a cause? I talked about sustainability before, but now think about sustainability in terms of the world. Are you looking at world assets in a different kind of a way that helps to stop global warming and things like that? What is the purpose for you building this personal brand in the first place? Really hone in on that. You know, I always talk about your VPV, right? So use your VPV to establish the direction that you actually want to point your viewers in when it comes to this particular website. And that being said, when we talk about the idea of creating that direction, the way that you actually want to point your viewers in, right? Think about that. Not everybody is at the stage of, right, let's do this. I want to meet you. I want to take that next step forward to be able to get in contact with you. Not everybody is always there at that point, right? So how else can you make sure that they do eventually get there? How else can you build trust? Well, you do that by way of an event section. Now, in this event section, you can either talk about key things that you've actually been introduced to or equally going to be showing in on. And when I talk about key things, I'm talking about interviews. I'm talking about newspaper articles or magazine articles that are coming up, or even masterclasses or training sessions that you're going to be involved in, if not hosting. Or even sessions, general interviewing sessions, whether it be on the radio or whether it be on TV, however you may be showing up, even on podcast interviews. If you've got something coming up, share that. Share that in a way that allows your viewer to be invited to it so they can get in on the action, so they can join you on your journey. Because if you're not inviting anybody on your journey, then how are you trying to boost your awareness? You know, what is that situation for yourself? And by the way, as much as I'm talking about inviting people on your journey, it doesn't have to be face-to-face. It doesn't have to be physically. When I'm talking about inviting people on your journey, help them to understand you. Help them to understand what it is that you're doing, and more specifically, why it is that you're really doing what it is that you're doing. So now, let's move on. Now, we talked about events, right? Now let's go into how I can work with you. Now, when I'm talking about how I can work with you, a lot of the time people are building up their personal brands because, yes, they want to make sure they are boosting the awareness of what it is that they stand for, which is absolutely brilliant. But also they're doing it so that they can additionally add awareness to their businesses, to their charities, to whatever entity that it is that they're drawing or wanting to draw even more attention to. So that being said, how can people work with you? Think about what that is. Is it a case of being able to click on a button and find out even more about a co-authored or authored book that you've been a part of? Is it finding out how they can actually interview you specifically? Because if you're showcasing an awareness about a specific cause, people are going to want to reach out to you eventually and want to interview you to find your opinion on certain things. So what is that? Then equally, off the back of maybe seeing an event that you've been in, do you know what they're going to want to find out? How can I really reach out to this person? Especially because I want them to speak at an event that I'm hosting. Especially because I really want to interview them on a podcast or radio show or even TV show. What is that way that people can actually reach out to you, that you can actually call them to action, and then speak about that little aspect shortly. But what is that? How can they do it? Now, similarly to how your e-commerce brand works, especially when you're building a website for that, you need to get into your viewer's mind and start asking yourself questions that you think that they are going to be asking you. So how can they work with you? That's a big question that they're going to be asking. Now, that being said, where I mentioned before about calling them to action, you need a call to action section. That's your contact section. And a lot of people keep this section super simple, which is fine for the specific cause that they may be doing. But however, how can you elevate that even more so? Again, address those specific questions that your viewers may be thinking of. And they are typically, right, yes, how can I get in contact with you? But how can I potentially call you? How can I actually potentially not only email you, but really just make sure that we move forward with whatever it is I need to move forward with? That could mean anything from, as I mentioned before, actually picking up a phone and actually calling you, or it could be arranging a Zoom session with you, or it could actually be following you on your social media platforms, or it could be 1,001 different things in order to be able to move forwards. Because as always, folks, just from what I shared with you guys in the other two series as well, it's all about making sure that you help your viewer to move forwards. Because as much as we love people watching what it is that we're doing, we also want to make sure that people take action in order to be able to boost this awareness that we have about ourselves and about our brands in the first place, right? So really think about that. Now I'm going to leave it there because I'm conscious I've rattled off a whole bunch of things for you, but essentially always have those things in mind. Your short, brief bio versus your about you bio. and I'm talking about a slightly lengthier version, then equally, how can people work with you? And more specifically, what are the events that you're going to be showing up in? Also, make sure you do this one part, folks. Make sure that you include any accolades, any credibility factors, or even logos. I talked about this at the very beginning of this video. Make sure you always include them, because what that does, it allows viewers to be able to see points of proof. And that's what you're doing. You're showcasing that point of proof. Because when you start adding logo features, for example, from the BBC or ABC or all the other letters underneath the alphabet, whatever those that matter in terms of your subject matter, those are going to be super relevant to the boosting not only your credibility, but even more specifically the awareness of what it is that you're doing and why it is that you're really, really doing it. It's showcasing how much of a seriousness you're really adding to your cause. So folks, I'm going to leave it there. And on that note, in order to be able to find out exactly what it is or the direction that you want to make sure that you are taking your personal brand in the first place, make sure you tap into these principles that will allow you to really get it for yourself. And even if you do get it for yourself, and even if you think that you know who your intended audience is when it comes to your personal brand, make sure you still tap into these principles, because they're going to be really cool checklists to make sure that you are definitely on the right page. Now, for those of you who are feeling like you're not quite on the right page, well, again, check these principles out, because what they're going to be able to do is to give you clarity. Clarity is going to be your way forwards, and clarity is going to be what makes sure that you actually level up when it comes to your brand, specifically the awareness of your personal brand. So when it comes to building your personal branded website, you're going to understand exactly what you're talking about, who you should be talking about it to, and more specifically, how you can make sure that the awareness that you're building is relevant, more specifically. So folks, in order to be able to access those principles in the first place, you're going to need to make sure that you click on the link that's underneath this video. Enter just a few little details. That's all I'm going to need from you in order to be able to fire over this information so that you can get going today, not tomorrow, but today. Get actioning with all of this stuff, because not only will it boost the elevation of what it is that you're trying to talk about, as I said before, but equally it's also going to make sure that you create a brand that is sustainable. So folks, I'm going to leave it there. Please make sure that you always go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel. And on that note, I will see you on the other side.